Can I ask you something? What would you do if you found out that the person who did your son's baby shower, who held him in the hospital the day he was born, who sat at your kitchen table every Thanksgiving and Christmas, and every ordinary Tuesday in between, had looked at your disabled child and decided his surgery money would look better as a floral arrangement? Because that is exactly what happened to me, and I need you to stay with me, because what I did about it, some people are going to say was too far, but I am going to let you be the judge of that. Caleb came into the world on a Wednesday morning in February. He was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen in my life, and I say that as someone who has never been particularly sentimental about anything. I am a senior financial auditor. I have spent 16 years in rooms full of numbers and spreadsheets and people who think they have hidden something they haven't. I am not a person who cries easily or feels things loudly. But the moment they placed Caleb in my arms, something in me just rearranged itself permanently. He was diagnosed at 14 months, a neuromuscular condition that his specialist explained in careful clinical language, while I sat across from her with my notebook open and my pen ready, because taking notes was the only way I knew how to be in a room when things were falling apart. The short version was this: without a specific surgical intervention, before his 6th birthday, the window for maximum impact would close, and the limitations he was already starting to show would become significantly harder to address. He was 14 months old. I had 4 years and 10 months. I drove home, sat in the parking lot of our apartment building for a while, just staring at the dashboard. And then I went inside, picked him up from his playmat, and made him a promise that I have never broken to any human being in my life. I am going to fix this baby. Whatever I have to do, however long it takes, I am going to fix this. I opened a dedicated account the next morning, every single month for 4 years. A fixed transfer, tracked obsessively, documented completely, managed with the same forensic attention I brought to every fraud case that crossed my desk. I read every research paper I could find. I flew to a conference in Chicago on my own dime to hear a surgical team present their outcomes data. I built a relationship with a specialist in Boston who I genuinely believe is one of the best in the country. By last March, the account held $152,000. The surgery was scheduled for a Thursday, and I remember sitting at my kitchen table the night before, looking at the account balance on my laptop, feeling something I hadn't felt in 4 years, like I had actually done it, like I had kept the promise. I called my sister Vanessa to tell her the surgery was the next day. She said that was wonderful, and then she said, "Oh, before I forget, can I use Dad's notary credentials for some wedding paperwork while he's traveling?" I said yes without a second thought. I want you to remember that detail, because it matters more than almost anything else I am going to tell you. Vanessa is 2 years younger than me. She is the kind of woman who has always moved through the world like it was designed specifically for her convenience. Not malicious about it, just genuinely unaware that things require effort for other people. Our dad has never been able to say no to her, not once in her entire life. And she learned that young, and she used it often. When she announced her engagement to a guy named Brandon, our whole family went absolutely insane with excitement, and I was genuinely happy for her. I want to be clear about that, because what comes next is easier to understand if you know that I loved my sister. I actually loved her. I showed up to every planning meeting. I gave her financial advice when she asked. I sat through more conversations about centerpiece options than I would wish on my worst enemy. And when the venue she wanted cost more than most people's annual salary, I gently suggested she consider something more in her budget. She gave me the look she has been giving me since we were kids, the one that makes you feel like you have somehow disappointed her just by being practical. And she said, "I just want one beautiful day, Naomi. Is that honestly too much to ask?" I told her it wasn't. I told her I hoped she got everything she wanted. I had absolutely no idea she had already decided to take it. The morning of Caleb's surgery. I was at the hospital by 6 a.m. He was in his dinosaur pajamas because I had let him pick what he wore, and those were his current obsession. He had a small stuffed dog named Captain tucked under his arm, and he was in a genuinely great mood because the pre-surgical nurses had let him sit in the big chair at the nurses' station, and he thought that was the coolest thing that had ever happened in the history of the world. I was filling out the final paperwork when the hospital's billing coordinator came and found me. She had the expression of someone about to deliver news they genuinely wish they didn't have to deliver. "Miss Carter," she said, "I'm so sorry to bring this up right now, but there appears to be an issue with the payment account for today's procedure." I looked up from the paperwork. "What kind of issue?" "The account is showing a zero balance. Our records show a series of withdrawals over the past 6 weeks, totaling $147,000. The hallway got very quiet. I could hear Caleb laughing at something at the nurses' station down the corridor. "Can I see the withdrawal records?" I said, very carefully. She handed me a printed statement, and there, in clean black type, were 9 separate transfers, each one authorized with a digital signature, my signature, except I had authorized exactly none of them. I walked to the end of the corridor, sat down in a plastic chair by the window, and opened my banking app. I am a senior financial auditor. I trace money for a living. I know exactly where to look and exactly how fast I can get there. It took me 11 minutes. Every dollar had landed in the same place, the Harrington Cole wedding account. I sat there, in that hospital corridor, with Caleb's laughter still coming from down the hall, and I pulled up Vanessa's Instagram. She had posted a story 40 minutes ago. She was at the venue, standing in front of a wall of white lilies, laughing, saying something to the camera about how the florist had absolutely outdone himself. Those flowers were purchased with my son's surgery money. She didn't steal from me. She stole from a 5-year-old boy in dinosaur pajamas who named his stuffed dog Captain and thought sitting in a big chair was the best day of his life. She stole his time. She spent his ability to walk on table centerpieces and lace. And I sat in that plastic chair for exactly 3 minutes, and then I went to work. I did not call her. I did not call my father. I did not cry in that hallway. Though I want to be honest with you, I did cry. Later, in the car, for about 4 minutes, and then I stopped because I had things to do and falling apart was not on the schedule. I called Caleb's specialist and explained the situation. She was extraordinary, connected me immediately with the hospital's patient advocacy team and a medical credit facility that would bridge the gap while legal recovery was pursued. Caleb's surgery would happen, just not today. I went back to him, told him the doctor needed 1 more day to get completely ready, which was true enough. He was disappointed for about 90 seconds and then asked if he could come back and sit in the big chair again. I told him absolutely yes. Then I drove home, sat at my kitchen table, opened my laptop, and I built the most thorough forensic audit I have ever assembled in 16 years of professional practice. Every withdrawal, time-stamped and traced. The forged signature verified against my actual signature by a digital forensics contact I called in a favor from. The medical invoices showing exactly what every dollar of that fund was designated for. The bank's own fraud confirmation. My father's statement once I called him, and he went very quiet and then very honest about the notary credentials Vanessa had borrowed. I cross-referenced every transfer against Vanessa's wedding vendor payments. The venue deposit, Caleb's fund. Her $12,000 dress, Caleb's fund. The imported white lilies she was laughing about on Instagram, Caleb's fund. The open bar, Caleb's fund. The honeymoon flights to the Maldives, Caleb's fund. 68 pages, every dollar accounted for, every trail documented, airtight. I called Detective Reyes, a fraud investigator I had worked with on a case 2 years earlier, sent her the complete package. She called back in 35 minutes. "Naomi, this is wire fraud, forgery, and theft of a medical fund designated for a disabled minor. I can have officers there Saturday evening. What time does the reception start?" I told her. Then I made 1 more call to the venue's AV manager. a guy named Tyler who had been contracted through my company's event services division 3 months earlier, when Vanessa had asked me to help coordinate the technical setup. She had forgotten that too. I had contacts in this industry that she had never bothered to pay attention to, because she had never paid attention to how anything actually got done. "Tyler," I said, "I need to talk to you about a change to the reception presentation content." The venue was exactly as beautiful as Vanessa had described across approximately 40 conversations. Grand ballroom, crystal chandeliers, white roses on every surface. The kind of room that makes people feel like their life is a movie, paid for entirely with money that was supposed to give my son the ability to walk without a brace by the time he started kindergarten. I arrived 40 minutes before the reception was scheduled to begin, in a deep emerald dress, because Vanessa had specifically told me months ago that emerald was off the table for guests. She didn't want anything competing with her color scheme. I wanted her to see me the second I walked through those doors. She was still in the ceremony when I arrived. I slipped into the reception hall and found Tyler at the AV station. He looked at me with the expression of someone who had read the documents I sent him and was deeply uncomfortable and also completely on board. "You sure about this?" he said. "Run it exactly as we discussed," I said. "Give them 10 minutes after the doors open. Let them get settled, let them pour the champagne, and then play it." I found a spot near the back of the room and I waited. The ceremony finished. The doors opened. 220 guests in formal wear filled the reception hall. Brandon stood at the head table for the first toast, raised his glass, started talking about love and partnership and the life they were going to build together. And Tyler dimmed the lights. The screens that lined 3 walls of the ballroom, which everyone assumed were for the wedding photo slideshow, came on. But it was not a photo slideshow. The first thing the room saw was Caleb, a video from his physical therapy session 3 weeks earlier. His small face completely focused, working so hard. His therapist's voice in the background saying, "You're doing amazing, buddy. Keep going." The room went completely silent, and then my voice came through the speakers. "His name is Caleb. He is 5 years old. For 4 years, I saved $152,000 for a surgery that could give him his mobility back before the developmental window closes. That money was stolen 6 weeks ago. What you are looking at right now, on those flowers, in that dress, in every glass of champagne in this room, is what it was spent on instead." The screens changed, the forensic audit, page by page, the withdrawal records, the forged signatures side by side with my real signature, the transfer history, the vendor receipts cross-referenced against Caleb's medical fund withdrawals. 3 walls of evidence, in a room of 220 witnesses. Vanessa stood up from the head table. "Turn it off." Her voice was high and strange. "Turn it off." But Tyler had locked the system from his station. Brandon's face had gone completely white. His father stood up from the VIP table and said absolutely nothing, just stood there reading the screens. I walked down the center of that room in my emerald dress, and the only sound was my heels on the marble floor. Vanessa turned to me, and her face did something I had never seen it do in 32 years of being her sister. It collapsed. "Naomi, please," she said, and her voice had lost everything that usually made it effective. "I was going to pay it back. I swear, I had a plan to pay it back." "I know about the plan," I said. "It's in the audit, page 47. You were going to repay it over 18 months using Brandon's business account, which means he knew." Brandon's father sat back down, heavily. I turned back to Vanessa. "That money was for Caleb's surgery," I said, quietly, because the room was so silent I did not need to raise my voice at all. "He was in dinosaur pajamas yesterday morning, waiting for a procedure that your flowers paid for instead. You didn't steal from me, Vanessa. You stole from a 5-year-old boy who has never done a single thing to you in his entire life." Detective Reyes walked through the main entrance with 2 officers. Vanessa looked at them, looked at me, looked at the room full of people who were not looking away. The officers were calm and professional and very matter-of-fact. The handcuffs made a sound that went through that silent ballroom like something final. Brandon was escorted out separately, his father watching from the VIP table with an expression I will never be able to fully describe. The guests filed out in almost complete silence, 220 people, most of them not saying a word. I did not stay to watch everything conclude. I walked out of that venue, got into my car, and I drove straight back to the hospital, back to Caleb, who was watching a movie on the tablet I had left him, and wanted to tell me everything that had happened in the plot in extreme detail. I sat next to his bed and I listened to every word, and for the first time in 6 weeks, I felt like I could actually breathe. The legal process moved fast because the evidence was airtight. Vanessa and Brandon both faced charges. The wedding funds were frozen as part of the fraud recovery. My father's cooperation with investigators meant the forgery charges were clearly established. Caleb had his surgery 11 weeks later. His specialist called the outcome better than projected. He spent his recovery period at home demanding his favorite book be read to him on a rotating basis, and asking me every single morning if today was a button day. On his first post-surgical follow-up appointment, they let him press every single button in the examination room. He looked at me afterward with the most serious expression he is capable of and said, "Mama, I think I want to be a doctor." I told him I thought he would be a great one. I meant it completely. Here is what I want to ask you before you go, and I want you to actually answer this in the comments because I genuinely want to know. When I walked into that reception hall with 68 pages of forensic evidence and Tyler at the AV station, was that justice? Or was that revenge? Because honestly, even now, I am not entirely sure which one it was. And I think there is a difference. And I think it matters. Drop your answer below. Tell me what you think. And tell me where you are watching from because we have people joining from all over. The US, the UK, Canada, Australia, all over the world. And I love knowing who is in this community. If Caleb's story stayed with you, please hit that like button. It takes 2 seconds and it helps more people find these stories who need to hear them. And subscribe if you haven't already, because we put out new stories every single week, and you do not want to miss what is coming next. Next week, a woman finds out her husband transferred every share of their company to his girlfriend the morning their IPO went public. He had one small problem. The original patent was filed under her name. Drop a comment. I will see you down there, and I will see you next week. The quietest person in the room is almost always the most prepared one.